So essentially, my experience is just one of continued change. I was always in the process of changing who I was, and I didn't do much well, but one thing I did really well was listen, and I learned. I was always a really good student, and so I just learned so much about what it meant to want to be someone different than who I was. I didn't know all that much about the energy that I was using to make those changes. It was aggression my whole life. Fear was my driver, and it was pretty effective because it's a powerful energy, and it'll make people do all sorts of crazy things. It made me lose 160 pounds and completely transform my physique. It made me get into Columbia University when my parents weren't lucky enough to graduate from high school. And it's what drove me into the PhD program as well. But when I started the business up again, I had been studying Buddhism since I was at Columbia. So I've been studying Buddhism now for over 25 years, and I was practicing to the best of my ability. I had a lot of knowledge of Buddhism, but I didn't have a lot of realization of the wisdom that it actually holds. And slowly but surely, I began to fatigue. That fear began to become less and less of a driver, because I recognized that while I got a lot done and created a product that many in the world would applaud, it did not result in peace. It did not result in my being happy. So when I got back into the business, I decided to introduce my clients to the experience of using loving kindness as a driver. People are so often concerned that if they stop being aggressive, they'll lose their edge. And I'll often say, you will lose your edges, but you won't lose your power. It's really difficult to hug things with edges anyway. It doesn't make life very comfortable. Your life will often take off your edges too, because you'll get rolled so often that you tend to smooth out or fall apart. And I wanted to smooth out. I didn't want to fall apart. And so I began to use all of the wisdom I gained in my academic experience, all of the wisdom I gained in the experience of transforming my body so dramatically, all of the wisdom I gained in my recovery from alcoholism, all the wisdom that I had gained in my recovery from an eating disorder, and began to just introduce people to the possibility that you can go further than you ever thought possible with loving kindness as your driver. But in order to do that, you have to understand how to cultivate loving kindness. And in order to do that, you have to understand how to meet the emotional experiences that you're actually having on a moment-by-moment basis with loving kindness. And so it's a pretty deep experience, and exercise is just the greatest platform for it. Exercise is the greatest platform for human change that there is, because your body is who you are. Volitional movement is as immediate an action as we can engage in. And when people are moving, their awareness and their attention is inherently in the body. And so for just a short period of time, they're avoiding the conversation that the conceptual mind perpetually offers us, always telling us that there's something wrong, that something could be better, that something might go wrong. And they're in their body, and just by doing that, they integrate. All of who they are becomes one. It manifests itself in the same space at the same time, and that is a healing experience in and of itself. Never mind the other benefits of exercise. But exercise also offers people the opportunity to go through the changes, the experience of change, rather, in sort of a microcosm. When people exercise, as they begin to fatigue, the same fear, the same doubt, the same insecurity will come up in that moment that will come up when they're making bigger life changes outside of the gym. And so when you offer people the opportunity to get familiar and comfortable with doubt, familiar and comfortable with fear, and teach them to smile at it, teach them to use loving kindness to move through it, they have proof that it's possible. Then they have a positive outcome, because if the exercise is anything close to intelligent, the person's going to become a healthier version of themselves. So they will just have witnessed themselves approaching their own limitation, recognizing their fear, recognizing their doubts, smiling at it, and then cultivating loving compassion as they move through it to the other side, where they inevitably find joy and growth. You can teach that in the gym better than you can teach it anywhere else. And so then I took that experience and I brought it into the corporate world. I brought it into my work with individual clients as a coach, and into the companies that I've been blessed enough to work with. So it really all started from my own experience of making as many mistakes as I possibly could. I recently read a really good quote that said, if I could live my life over again, I would make all the same mistakes. I would just make them quicker. And I think that stands true for me. The wisdom that I have earned and the wisdom that I have been given by a host of loving women and men who are far wiser than I is what I have to offer now. And I only have to offer it because of the mistakes I made.